Welcome back to WagerTalk.com. We're going to talk about the College Football National Championship. We're taping on Wednesday. The second week of the poll came out last night, and it's fun. Everybody likes to talk about, the rankings and where everybody's at and what could possibly happen. But we're here to talk about betting, and if we have any value, and if you guys see something that you think might be worth a bet for the national championship on the futures right now, the way it's shaping up. Before I go to that with you guys, I want to tell you the golden nugget here in Vegas, Tony Miller, put up a number for a hypothetical national championship game. We've got number 1, number 2, Alabama, or Georgia and Alabama. And even though Alabama is 2 in the rankings with the polls, they've got Alabama a 6.5-point favorite in the national championship game. Just before we came on air, Preston, I asked you to do your number, and you have it at what?
It's at 7, exactly flat. And I saw in a separate spot, I think there was a 6 that was a look ahead. Yeah. Maybe it was Westgate, but everything I've seen is under 7. I have a question to throw back at you then, Marco, real quick. If Auburn beats Georgia, do you think it affects the look ahead line a lot?
Oh, absolutely, because it's going to change the complexion of it. Because as we get a little deeper into this, if Auburn pulls off the upset this week, Auburn's a team that can turn the college football rankings upside down, and I think Ralph's going to talk about that. You started to hint at it when you did the Auburn Georgia video earlier, and I think we're all seeing the same thing that could possibly happen. So I'll go ahead and throw it to you. Right now, Auburn's sitting 10th in the polls, the championship polls. They can get themselves into the national championship. Tell us how.
Well, Preston basically read my notes earlier when we were in a best bet talking about Auburn and Georgia. And I think Auburn's, you look at the body of work, Auburn's odds are so high at almost 50-1 because they have 2 losses, and no 2-loss team has ever been there and done that. But if you're going to take a long shot, you might as well take a flyer on something that hasn't been done because they control their own destiny to make it happen. You're not counting on a bunch of dominoes to fall. They play Georgia this week. If they beat Georgia, they play Bama in 3 weeks. If they beat Bama, they'll then be in the SEC championship. They'll play Georgia again. And in a 4-week stretch, as Preston said earlier, they'll have beaten the number 1 and 2 teams 3 times. And I think that's going to put them in. Now, the complexion with the Georgia-Alabama championship talk that we gave out is that a 1-loss Georgia team, I don't think gets in. A 1-loss Bama team, you have a team that's been in the playoffs, has been a champion, twice over several years. I think a 1-loss Bama team is going to get in. I don't know if a 1-loss Georgia team gets in. So, if you like Auburn this week against Georgia, I think they're a great flyer to have. Sure, a 2-loss team has never been there and done that, but Auburn in the next 3 weeks controls the destiny to change that.
And we're seeing them around town. Westgate has them at 40-1 right now. You saw offshore at 50-1. Yeah. A lot of value there. Go to you, Preston. We've got several other teams in here. Who are you looking at that could upset the apple cart, so to speak?
Yeah, I don't know if this is going to be a weird long shot, but I saw the price and I was honestly shocked. And I only started looking because I knew we were doing this video, and I'd been pubbing Auburn all year and I wanted to pick a different team. But you can still get Wisconsin at 20-1. They're undefeated. They're not a long shot, but I mean 20-1 still feels like a pretty good price on a team that, and I was listening on the radio just as I was driving here, and people are talking about how they're going to maybe be left out. The Big Ten's going to give them the cold shoulder because they've played nobody, and they could run the tape. I do not see how that's possible. As much as the committee loves Ohio State every year, if they beat them as short underdogs in the championship, they still play Iowa, Michigan, and then a road Minnesota game. So their next 4 opponents are 4 of their toughest they've seen yet. So their schedule's going to get tougher. And I've been the first to even say, well, Wisconsin's offense isn't very good, and they've done it against a really poor schedule, so they're going to get beat. But I think a lot of people see, oh, well, they were 80-1 before the year, and we missed the boat. And I did the same thing last year on Alabama, and I was like, never mind, week 6 or whatever, and I made a big Alabama bet at plus 250. It doesn't mean plus 20 or plus 2,000. 20-1 doesn't have value here on Wisconsin. If they win out, which they absolutely could, they're going to be favorites their next 3 games before maybe Ohio State, maybe even Michigan State. Maybe it gets to the point where they're a favorite in the Big Ten title game. I think that's worth the bet at 20-1, and it feels like a long shot. They're one of the only undefeated teams left, and if you go undefeated in the Big Ten, you should be in the playoff. I think that's just
you will be it. There's no question.
They should be in there. It's funny that we're even having that conversation, but Wisconsin hasn't played anybody. There's no question about that. They haven't, but they've taken care of business. Mine's a little more tricky, and I'm looking at the team that's sitting 6th right now, and that's TCU. And this is all coming down to if you like TCU this week against Oklahoma. If they can pull off the upset of Oklahoma, then you got to put them into the conversation. They have one loss. It would be to the 1 point to Iowa State.
Iowa State.
Yeah. And this is a team, it's one of the only teams that plays defense in the Big 12. And I think the Big 12 is going to get a little, they're not going to say it, but the Big 12's got screwed the last several years with the playoff picture with teams. And a couple of years ago, it was TCU and Baylor that both got screwed. And the whole thing was, well, you don't have a championship game. You lose that one game. So the fact that they changed the rules, they don't actually have divisions, but they are having a championship game this year, I think is going to help somebody if the things play out right. And if TCU only has one loss on their resume, I think they could sneak in here. And, you're looking at a team that's, another one that's 40-1, and they really only have to get by Oklahoma this week. The Auburn one that we all like, which might have an easier time to do it, they got to go through a couple teams. They got to go through Alabama. They got to go through Georgia, and then play the championship game again, a big game in the SEC. So
TCU would probably have to play Oklahoma a second time, or Iowa State a second time, or maybe Oklahoma.
Yeah, I think it would be Oklahoma with one loss. So we saw what Baker Mayfield did at Ohio State with revenge. Imagine him playing a team a couple weeks later. It sure be a heck of a game. Yeah.
But it's 40-1. It sets up, if you want to find it. Flyer. So those are our long shot guys for you for the national championship. I think everything's going to get a little bit clearer this week because we're going to have, there's several big games. The Auburn in Georgia game, Miami in Notre Dame. That's going to knock somebody out. And we'll see what happens in Oklahoma. TCU is going to knock one of them out of contention as well. So we'll be back with more here at WagerTalk. And don't forget, 3-day all access. You want to jump on board just for 3 days? What better 3 days? Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Get all the plays. Pick your favorite capper. $59. Get all of their plays. And that would include any big 5% play that they would have. Check it out at WagerTalk.com.